Everybody, welcome back to another episode of VCTV with your host, Kyle Ellicott. It's a pleasure to be back here today. We've got an exciting episode as we're coming to the very close end of Q4 2020, a wild year in venture capital, following even a crazier year of 2019 and where investments were to where investments are today. And here on today's episode, we're going to be talking about investing in this new reality. And really, what we're talking about is investing not just in 2020, but looking ahead for the next decade. Where should we as investors be placing our bets in terms of technologies and industries, potentially even regions around the world, along with entrepreneurs? Where should we be putting our focus and time and energy in building new companies, services, and products for customers as well? So a lot to talk about because a lot of things have changed. And what I mean by change, as we've talked about here almost daily on VCTV, is how 2020 has become a pivotal year for the next decade, and how so many different technologies and industries have finally converged. Finally, as we'll talk about a little bit here in a moment, but have finally converged. This digitization of everything has put us in a position to look at a new decade in front of us where the information age, or industrial 4.0, will forever change the way we live our lives. So again, how do we invest? How do we build? That's what we're here to talk about on VCTV. With that, a big thank you to our audience for tuning in. If you're liking what you hear today, make sure you click that big subscribe button. If you would like to be on a show like today, joining our outstanding panel of investors, do reach out. We'd love to have you share your thoughts and insights about different technologies, industries, and regions around the world. If you're an entrepreneur, there's also a chance for you to join here on VCTV. We have a virtual stage. It's an amazing stage, bright lights, everything. It's a virtual stage for you to get up on and pitch us as investors, your product, your company, your service, to get real-time feedback and also build foundational relationships with us, interested and focused on your area, along with exposure to our entire live audience. Do reach out to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right set of investors and the right topic for you to speak on. And a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host. Let's get started. As we do here on every episode, we like to introduce each and every one of our investors. Sometimes I have a fun intro. Today, we're going to welcome up a new
of systematic investments on hedge funds. So this is how I got into financial markets at first, and then I jumped into crypto and full decentralization with setting up my own investment company, Insula. We only invest on protocol tokens, so we are really pure players in the field. So this is our focus, mainly decentralized finance protocols, and we only invest on those. So this is our vision of the investing in the new reality.
Very cool. And to the new reality, that is a great point. We talk a lot about blockchain, a lot about digital currencies here on VCTV, and we're going to continue to do so. We've got a special episode coming up tomorrow to dive even deeper on that topic. But Jules, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure as always. Arena, welcome back. It is a pleasure to have you. I know you got a little bit to talk about too. You got something very exciting coming up relevant to what Jules just mentioned. So feel free to shamelessly plug that, but a little intro and a little background for everybody.
Yes. I will shamelessly plug soon. My name is Irina Litchfield, crypto superwoman. I'm founder of Blockchain Cubed. It's a blockchain consulting firm. We do, most of the time, we do the technology integration with the financial technology. I'm also president of Lumeria, where capital meets innovation. We work with growth stage companies, democratizing opportunities all over the world. And Lumeria is launching our first event for a global roadshow. This is going to be an innovation event for thought leaders this time. It's not time for us to get on a global roadshow just yet. So it's called ARA Global. You can check it out at ara.global.
Wonderful. Definitely check that out, everybody. Ara.global as well. And Arena, we'll talk more about that at the end of the show today. So everyone, again, stay tuned. Long dramatic pause for today's introduction, but we'll come back to that. I'm going to leave it just a little bit longer of a pause. Noble, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. A little intro, a little background. We're talking about the new reality today and where we're investing, not just here in 2020, but looking at the decade ahead, looking at your world of immersive technology and where you focus and where you love. Can't wait to talk about this, but before we do, intro and background.
Hi guys, my name is Noble Dracone. I've been in all forms of tech, Web 1.0, 2.0 since the late 90s. We now are Dracone Capital Partners, and we help companies find and raise capital as well as make investments ourselves. We've teamed up with a group called M Accelerator in Los Angeles, in which we have a venture fund, and our focus is to help 300 startups in the seed level. I know there's multiple levels, seed levels, but $50,000 to $100,000 level, so that they can get their MVPs initiated and started. We like certain spaces. Our focus is particularly in blockchain, NFT, as well as essential services, as well as innovations in both SaaS services, as well as both media and technology, particularly in the augmented reality and virtual reality phase. You know, we're hyper focused in that space only because that's kind of where things have already evolved and headed, and we believe in explosive growth. We're in the middle of two key projects in which we've interacted with Wax.io, and we're about to launch some NFTs ourselves because we believe in the non-fungible token space significantly as a DeFi vertical. I'm just happy to be here, Kyle. Good to see Gary, Arena, and Jules.
Wonderful. And that was a perfect transition from my long paused introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The Grandmaster of Artificial Intelligence, the one and only Gary Fowler. Little intro, little background.
Sir. Kyle, I feel humbled. You are the Nostradamus of technology, the Oracle of San Francisco, the trend center of trends. I'm humbled. Thank you. I appreciate it. My name's Gary Fowler, and I'm a serial entrepreneur, and it's great to be here with my friends. I've done 16 companies. I've had 2 unicorns, love AI, now moved into quantum computing and blockchain because I'm very interested in that. I write a lot. So I've got, I guess, 5 articles coming out this week. I really stepped it up. So I've done about 90 now. And I just love it. The world has changed dramatically. We've adapted. They just announced that the Pfizer vaccine is 90% effective against COVID. That just came out a few minutes ago. And Zoom, by the way, dropped 20%. So there's a lot of good stuff coming out, and it's an exciting time. And it's good to see Noble and Arena and Maria and you, of course, Kyle and Jules. Thank you.
Thank you. And great to see all of you, but also Gary, the news you just mentioned, a lot has changed here in 2020, not just for our lives, but also the technologies and the industries that we love and know, but also looking again towards that decade ahead, things have changed and will change and will get more exciting, hopefully, as we look towards the next 10 years. With that, we'd love to hear from each of you kind of how you're seeing investing in this new reality, really just investing in this next decade. You know, what is getting you excited? Where are you thinking about investing? What have you seen? I mean, Gary, we were talking pre-show a little bit about some new technologies you're focused on. So to each of you, what is getting you excited looking at this new next decade ahead of us? And Jules, let's start with you. I mean, I know you're a little bit in the digital currency space and maybe looking at a few other areas, but what has you excited about this next decade when it comes to your investments?
Thank you. So primarily, I think we're looking at Insulad and the company I founded. On my main interest is into seeing protocols as companies. So typically, you can use cryptocurrencies inside these protocols. We consider then cryptocurrency as a brand new asset class, where automation is at the center of everything. So typically this new reality could be a a place where you invest on the equivalent of companies, but it's actually protocols, so everything is automated. The idea is to not obviously get rid of humans, but it's just to have very efficient operations through typically decentralized finance protocols. So that's first an approach to looking at different fundamentals and eventually replacing fundamentals with data, because typically to us, the cryptocurrency market is you can only assess it with analyzing data. It's very hard for humans analysts to find relevant information there to price. So typically our approach is fully to see, we only consider automation on data for decision making in that sense.
Very, very interesting. And Irina, I would love to come to you on this next. I mean, I know you focus in a similar area. You've got a ton of experience in blockchain, but in addition to furthering comments on Jules, and thank you, Jules, would also love to hear your thoughts as to what you're seeing for the next decade. But first, anything to add on Jules and his investment thesis as what he's looking at from the protocol side?
I think it's great, and I love that they're really concentrating. I love that, Jules, that you're concentrating on decentralized protocols. I think those are really great kind of ways for us to lead into a new reality. Obviously automated trading is very interesting. I think that in the next decade, we're going to see a huge push in the space industry. Obviously, and I do believe that maybe even a way we will live new realities, so kind of a new way of governance. I do hope that we will be able to integrate AI and blockchain to kind of take away challenges that are associated with governance and maybe start being able to test out in practice new models. But overall, I do believe that space is in our future and we will see huge push and huge leap. And especially in 10 years, I do think that we are going to be looking back and thinking, wow, we thought that all these things are just not going to be possible, and and look at us. And even in near term, I think the kind of a little space tourism is something that's becoming affordable. For example, Zero to G company, it's a launch company. It's not a launching platform. It's a launch company, global launch company that's democratizing launch in the world, which is very important. Full disclosure, it's one of the first portfolio companies for Lumeria, so they will be one of the first listings on the Ape Global when we do go public. It's all capital markets is such a slow journey comparing to like the world of let's say blockchain. Everything moves so fast and everything moves the opposition, like oppositely slow. But it's fine. It is what it is, and it's worth the pull. So, but there's a lot of, and the cost will be $2,500 to go and in the low orbit. $2,500, yeah. And so it's becoming really affordable and really real. And I think that's where we have a lot of opportunities. I would hope that quantum will just basically come in and ruffle all the feathers up, but it's still kind of far and very expensive. So I think that as far as the investment opportunities right now, it probably only should be looked at by those that understand it and understand the feasible projects, because there's so much science that goes into it and so much knowledge goes into it. And there are companies that are just kind of are trying to raise money, but they're maybe they'll win, I don't know. But when you look at the back end science of what they're doing, it doesn't seem that they know what they're doing. So I do think that quantum investment for now, it's still for kind of a more educated, larger checks, investors. But the space is available. We have seed, we have A rounds, we have B rounds, we have C rounds coming up. So it's all becoming possible. And I mean, in the space industry right now is very liquid, very, very liquid. It's 7 years to liquidity right now that most companies are experiencing, which is unbelievable.
I mean, $2,500 to go to low orbit. I mean, in some cases, that can be an international ticket, depending on a plane ticket, depending on where you may be going, and just standard class, not even a business class, but in some cases, a little bit more, or a little bit less.
Right.
Yeah.
And think about science. So many things. Remember Megan Crawford was talking about printing organs in no gravity space. And so if we can go and be there for so cheap, how much benefit we can do and how exciting it can be. And obviously it expedites our travel. We're traveling too slow. This is not part of our reality. And that's it has to be upgraded. And I do know that there are many companies right now are racing at kind of what it looks like for us to travel in, 5 hours to the farthest station on our planet.
Right. That's going to be some wild stuff. And I mean, when we talk about the decade ahead, this is something that's very possible in the very near future. I mean, this is not necessarily something, too far out. I mean, even thinking about something like Hyperloop, we just got news yesterday, actually, that the first passengers traveled safely on Hyperloop, brought to you by Verizon, or excuse me, Virgin. Brought to you by Verizon. Brought to you by Virgin. Virgin's Hyperloop. Passengers have safely traveled. So these types of new methods of travel are already here. And the fact that the cost is coming down so quickly is amazing. And I want to come back to you on space in just a few moments. But before I do, you mentioned quantum. Gary, I want to come to you around quantum, but also in general, what you're seeing. Talk to you a little bit pre-show about quantum and some of the things you're seeing. So we'd love to hear your thoughts as to where that goes in the next decade. But then furthermore, what is getting you excited about the next 10 years?
Everything. I got to tell you everything. So, we look at where we are today and we look at these transportable AI models. We look at space, we look at sustainability. But when we net it all out, it's about processing faster and doing it in an intelligent, not smart way. And so it's just, we're in the dawn of a new era. So in terms of quantum, why is it so exciting to me personally? Because look at the opportunities it opens up for us. When we talk about drug discovery and modeling, I just had a meeting 3 weeks ago with the top pharmaceutical companies in Europe about artificial intelligence and modeling. And I mean, they're just on the dawn of this, but think about the possibilities. Now we can do it with artificial intelligence. They're starting to lean that way. But when you mix quantum into this thing, being able to solve those problems in a matter of minutes, right? Or hours, not years. So, I mean, people don't realize that quantum computers, now there's different variations of it, but could be 100 million times faster than a conventional computer. 100 million with qubits. So we are on the dawn of a new era. And look at things like cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, we talk about cybersecurity, how to set it up, unit artificial intelligence. And I've written several articles, including one last week about cybersecurity and security, illicit trade, et cetera. So, but where are we? I mean, the thing is predicting where the intrusion is going to take place. But think about it. You got quantum in there. This thing, there is no such thing as cybersecurity because it's moving around all the time. It's never, you know what I mean? It's like the bad guys are coming after you. You're shifting around. It's like shapeshifters. And I mean, our whole world's going to be like that. Talk about the speed of how we do business. Everything's going to change. Imagine even the stock market, because now you've got massive amounts of training information. And I have a friend of mine that used AI and trained it on the stock market. And even with the down stuff, he's up 80%, right? And he put $1 million in just for, since the beginning of this year. Now, just think when you put quantum into it and you start looking at all the stuff on the web, all the information, all the indices, everything changed. I don't even know if this is going to be a stock market, because it's going to be, everybody's going to be able to win. So you got to have losers to be able to win, right?
That is very true. That is very true. And I mean, there's so much that could be there. And we've talked about this on previous episodes around the idea of the future of liquidity and stocks and just tokenization, or the digitization of everything, and what that could mean, right? Being able to just have everything as a liquid asset, which I know seems like a very big dream to many, but it is something that could
data, Kyle. I mean, your own data is worth money, right? But
Agreed.
We got to be careful what you wish for, because Google, I mean, we're not paying for Google today, but if you start taking away the advertising revenue and they can't make any money, everything changes. And so be careful what you want. And Irina's focused on space, I mean, think about it, literally. And this is a conversation directly with your friend, Christopher Altman, the NASA astronaut. There are 6 billion Earth-like planets in the Milky Way galaxy. I used to scale it down based on the Kepler project, but he told me now, as of a month ago, there are 200 trillion galaxies estimated in the universe with the latest research. Trillion. Think about it. He said when you go up in space and you look down on the Earth, he said it's a literally a religious experience because you understand how small we really are, right? And all the things that we have going on, but then you look beyond. So we're just beginning. I mean, everything's going to change. He told me, by the way, he's working on a project on the teleportation of particles. He's a quantum physicist, PhD. At MIT, the teleportation of quantum particles. This is like Star Trek, you know? And so everything changes. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the application across every vertical market, because when you look at transportable AI models, it's all based on the training set. Now I mix quantum in it, everything starts to change. We find out quickly. It's not waiting for 10,000 years to figure out a problem. In fact, I saw this recently. It said what the quantum could do in minutes was what it would take a conventional computer 10,000 years.
Which is wild. It's just super exciting. And Noble, I want to come to you. I mean, this changes the game for part of your world. Again, that immersive experience that we all hope and want so much in the coming future. Bringing in quantum, but bringing in just bigger and better processing power just changes the game. Talk to us a little bit about that, and then also what you're seeing and what's getting you excited for the decade ahead. Oh, sorry, buddy, you're on mute. We weren't able to hear you there. No worries.
Yeah, so it's interesting because it really belies a point, right? Augmented reality and virtual reality have been around since the 70s, to be honest. And computing power has always been the issue of how do we be able to deploy the ability to utilize computers to interact and allow us to see what's happening overlaid on our reality, utilizing computers. And before there wasn't cell phones, the idea was to be able to put something in space. And as time has progressed, your average cell phone is able to utilize that computing power in which we can literally see a digital world overlaid on our real world. I believe the idea of, and we always talk about it in our space of where mixed reality and AR and VR is really the Web 3.0. The idea of sitting around looking at screens in order to then pull our information back will be considered just as antiquated as going to an encyclopedia to find out what the information is on different ideas and subjects. You know, now you just type in on your computer and you can find out anything. So it's one of those things where there's a complete shift, and it really is technologically driven, but it also is by necessity. People need their information now. And so the idea, and there's layers to this, right? Some people fall on the sort of, you know, you're going to have these whole separate worlds created of virtual reality and function and operate. And then some will fall in the sort of augmented reality and believe that there's going to be this digital information overlaid. And I think that there's really a combination of both. I don't think there's really a separation. And so I've always been a big fan of the idea of mixed reality, just like mixed media, that the information that we see on the screen or the information that we see on an object literally be able to be displayed to us about a tree, clothing, an item. You know, everyone always likes to talk about this in terms of selling people stuff, but just knowing general information will be available too. But then when you go and you see, let's say, the Washington Monument, and you get the data about it, you can then literally take one step further into that and then have an immersive experience in VR of actually being when the monument was created or the battles that happened to inspire it. So I think that there's this full layering of being able to display information, and computers are 100% paving the way. You know, without AI, visual science doesn't work, and the computing power to be able to relay and overlap what is being displayed as information on top of us visually is huge. And human beings, you know, we're visual creatures. One of the reasons why the iPhone succeeded was icons and the ability to use icons and symbology in order to navigate. And that's why the iPhone was usually immersive experience. 2-year-olds can use it without a problem and be able to navigate it and play with it. So human beings are highly visual. And so by allowing the computing power to be as strong as it's becoming, it just makes it so much simpler. But, at the same time, I've been a trader for 26 years. I started my career in the commodities industry, and I've written several books on trading and investing. And so when I look at this, I also look at the idea of the singularity, that as we progress over the next decade, bit by bit, technology, and where technology begins and humans end and vice versa, are starting to slowly erode. I watched a show over the weekend regarding exoplanets and how much of a struggle it was to simply make the scientific community even believe that there were planets and worlds that were Earth-like around the suns. There's scientists who spent decades almost in ridicule in order to prove the point that these exoplanets not only existed or were plausible and actually had opportunities to have an impact on us here on Earth, and that there were opportunities for us to learn and study them. And I believe that a lot of the technology that we are now seeing as quote unquote commercially viable, there's a whole substrata of scientists and technology that we have not even been exposed to, solely because they have not met the scientific rigor in order to be introduced. So it's great that of the items that we have, but the things that really make me most excited is that there's some really aggressive mandates. California says 0 emissions in the next decade, 0. That means there's going to be a lot more innovations driven in the whole entire space of zero energy output, focusing on clean energy, the ability to find alternative resources. And there's things that we haven't even seen. I've talked to people recently who are trying to get us to invest in things such as carbon batteries as opposed to lithium batteries. I talked to a guy who his whole team has literally hacked 3D printers in a software format to convert regular 3D printers that may cost $15,000 to be converted now into organic printers that can print organs. And they've literally hacked the system. They're on the bleeding edge of what they've developed that you're not going to see in your everyday space. And so I think that with the aging baby boomer population, literally on the heels of America, there's so many little segments that are starting to evolve as opportunities in both healthcare and energy, dementia, Alzheimer's. And so the beginning of a fast tracking, and hopefully this whole scenario with the COVID test sets a new tone. There's going to be some really innovative just changes in biochemistry and how we display and help people. So I'm excited overall. I think that it all requires some level of technology to make it happen. And I think that the best is yet to come.
Agreed. And to that, would love to hear more of how your investment theses have changed, because as we look towards this new reality, this next decade, things may have changed for you as investors, where you're thinking about not just industry-wise, as we just spoke about, but also what looks differently from a company perspective. What are you looking in terms of founders? What regions are you looking at maybe slightly differently? So Jules, I want to come back to you. How has your investment thesis changed or evolved as you're looking towards this next decade? I mean, things are going faster, things are moving, tons of new industries, as Noble touched on this convergence, and Gary Arena, and you also mentioned around the digitization of everything. It's changing the game for us as investors. So how, as investors, are you looking at things slightly different and changing your thesis for the decade ahead?
Sure. So since I think the keyword here is machine and automations, in general, what we're trying to do is to push the decision-making to machines. And then machines work very well with figures and mathematical framework. So in terms of decision-making, to avoid injecting bias and so that machines can think properly, we only basically feed them with unbiased mathematical framework. So for example, we will try to not take any decision ourselves, but we're spending most of our time basically programming computer programs just so that then typically to select the investment universe or the companies we will consider for investment will only be the result of a rule-based process fully fed with data. So typically that's an approach. So as we said, we want to invest on protocols that are automated with an automated strategy that only works with data. So the idea is to only make it an investment paradigm by machines for machines in that sense. So that's a summed up version, I would say. So the idea is to simply take advantage of the ocean of data that is being created, to efficiently navigate it and to see to make informed decisions. We think it's a machine that should take it because it's just overwhelming now. This Web 3.0 is a new web of data, public data actually, that is accessible by anyone. And then it shows that there is a race towards maximizing the utility you can make of having those distributed ledgers. So now it may not be about the scarcity or access to data. It may be what do you make out of it? Because now it appears like the era of Web 2.0 where data is owned and the person who owns it rules everything, may be shifting to a more open paradigm where we all have the same, I would say, ingredients at the beginning of the race. We have an infinite amount of data to deal with, but it's all about creating a funnel or process to efficiently, intelligently navigate, basically. This is our, I would say, vision. So fully data, rule-based, and in the investment process, there is absolutely zero human interaction, if possible. Of course, bias is a very long story because humans are always behind the machines or the algorithmic systems. So it's very difficult not to inject bias or to pretend to have a perfectly unbiased system. But this is at least where we're trying to head. And maybe new technologies will allow fully unbiased investments.
Well, with that, it's a great point. Thank you, Jules. With that, Gary, I want to come to you to follow up on that if you have anything to add, but then also how your investment thesis has changed. I know you're focusing a lot around data and some of the areas that Jules mentioned. So quick follow-up there. And then also, again, how has your thesis changed?
Yeah, so in terms of my thesis, I mean, nothing's changed. AI. I mean, the difference is we're looking for companies is not just about the AI, it's about the training sets that they have. And so that has changed. And then where can we apply it? How fast can we apply it? What vertical markets those companies are in? I mean, just the typical questions you would ask from that standpoint. But is it really artificial intelligence or algorithmic math? Is it semi-supervised or unsupervised? Where are they? Do they really have a team to build it? You know, that kind of thing. We're kind of like, you know, before it was kind of like closeted. You would have these AI gurus that would be in some place like Russia or Ukraine or Israel, sometimes in the Valley. But the situation now is it's starting to become mainstream. And I like it because it's like e-commerce was back in the late 90s when I started a e-commerce consulting company. Said, oh, this isn't going to take off. Amazon just sells books, right? And I did Delta and American Airlines websites with my company. And I remember when we got started, my friend Pyong Chen's stock was at $6 a share. And he said, Gary, this is a $30 billion cottage industry. I think his stock was at 2000 at one point. And he had started Siebel Systems, original money in Siebel, Sina, Ufida in China, that kind of stuff. And I remember him telling me, and I'm like, Pyong, you really think, what about Barnes and Nobles? And here we are, right? And the world's changed. Look at where we are today. So my thesis hasn't changed, but I've expanded it. When I see pharmaceutical companies, like you stated earlier, about being able to do drug development in hours rather than hundreds of years, that excites me. Imagine how much the quality of our life. That article I wrote on living to 150, I explored it, but I believe now more than ever that it can happen sooner than later. I mean, it's happening as we speak. So where's it change? I'm looking for exciting teams that are able to conquer and dominate this AI space, that are looking for technologies like quantum computing and really looking at the future to be able to help us live longer, live better, and live happier.
Absolutely. And Arena, to you, anything to add on to that point of Gary's, but then also, again, how has your investment thesis changed? I know that you're also in the area of agriculture. You're in a few areas around sustainability and impact, which we haven't talked about, but what else to add to Gary? And then again, how has your investment thesis changed?
Well, the innovations and that which pushes the boundary has been something that captured my attention in technologies for a long time. What changed for me is exactly that, is the ranching, right? So I kind of, just because we've been all locked up and hiding in here, it allowed us, I mean me and my family, to really connect better to the earth and do some gardening. We bought our cow, and again, that was just at our home in Austin, Texas, right? So we live in city, it's just we live in a really interesting area where you can't have a cow. So we're probably the only people that have a cow in Austin, Texas. But to me, that's a big portion that changed, and it changed in a way to where I used to think that farming and farming is something that's kind of like farmers do that and it's out there, and maybe it's not necessarily profitable because it's kind of like big lands being belonging to big families for the long time, and it's big agriculture, and I do not believe, for health reasons, with the traditional agriculture, and it's abusive to land. So I kind of looked at it as just something that, like, I don't know, it's not interesting, I don't understand it, and it's not going to change. And basically through this process of being home and looking at how things work, getting a little bit more time to do more research, I learned about the regenerative farming, and I learned that it is actually through agriculture that we change the quality of food, we can change quality of air, and we change the quality of water, and we can actually save the planet. My mind shifted from we need to change the way we burn the fuel to really we can make a measurable impact in in changing the agriculture, and most importantly, realizing that it is profitable and we can monetize it, not just through selling healthy meats, healthy greens, whatever it is, right? But monetizing in other different interesting ways, that we can tokenize the carbon that we trap, right? We can tokenize the increased biodiversity in land, and it's all measurable. It's not something that's kind of like out there in the sky that's not understandable. So that's the biggest change that happened for me, and the biggest interest that added to my pile of of things I care about.
Absolutely, totally understand. And Noble, same question. Anything to add on to Arena's points, but also, again, how has your investment thesis changed? Now working with, not just doing direct investments, but looking at working with M Accelerator, working with some of these other partners that you have, how have things changed?
Yeah, we were very, when I filed my patent on augmented reality and virtual reality, I was very, very narrow cast in that space in how it plays with media and mobile entertainment. And as I started to progress, I saw that there's really a huge need in the seed space in a big way. And that's why I've been really happy with my partnership with M Accelerator. So my thesis has really been more focused on helping those people just get started. There's a lot of people with very good ideas that don't have either the access, whatever it may be, gender, race, whatever, not in the right schools. They don't have enough access to capital and enough people to give them capital. And then there's also a whole group of people who are just really, really intelligent and capable who are just not good at selling themselves. And there's just some real good and really great opportunities that now in this time, we feel that by focusing on seeding as many companies as possible in the beginning, we'll be able to capture, really help those founders that just kind of fall by the wayside. And it's super important when we're talking in a phase where we're looking at a fraction of the startup founders who ever raise money are women, a fraction are African American, a fraction are or just people of color in general. There's a whole group of people who have a whole new perspective, or maybe just a different perspective than just the mainstream, that need to be able to have a voice as well, and also need to be kind of mentored and coached along the way. And we really I have added more of the human side to investing. You know, for so long, I've been really focused on the numbers and how much we can earn and what the earnings have been. And that's just by virtue of my trading background and running my hedge fund. But there's really a significant human component that these things are not made in a vacuum. It's great to talk the numbers and it's great to talk about, you know, how great the future will be, but it's really for people by people. You know, it's still people programming, it's people designing, it's people creating. And there has to be some cognizance that founders need to be supported. They have to eat. Their families need to be taken care of in order for them to be able to have the creative wherewithal to be able to develop the innovations that they do. And it's just easy to kind of ignore and or forget that in the desire to operate like the machine, you know, to grind it out and try and find our unicorns. And I guess that's the other component too, that we started to really back off the idea that every project that we need to interact with has to be a unicorn, that there's really a lot of great what VCs and PEs may call lifestyle businesses that still can produce a lot of cash flow for the investors and the people who support early on. And so those are great opportunities to really participate in innovation without having to force the pressure or pressure cook a business to the point of where everyone's burnt out. So it's really that human component that has become a lot more of my thesis. So the cores haven't changed in what we're looking for: innovation, capability, the ability to find unique ways to apply even old technology. But the fact that humanity first still has to play a role in the idea that the founders need support, that they need help, they need people to believe in them, and they need people who want to see them succeed in a significant way. That's really driven and added. And I think made my thesis more robust. It hasn't really changed it, but it's just given it a whole nother dimension that I believe that we can be proud of for years to come.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing all of that, each and every one of you. And as we come close to the top of the hour here, I do want to come around and talk to you about advice. So as founders are building in this space and as investors are looking to get into some of these areas we mentioned, what advice do you have for them on both sides, looking to invest and looking to build when looking at the next 10 years? It's a big, big question, but we'd love to hear each of you, your advice. So Noble, we're going to start with you. Quick advice that you have for investors and for founders looking at this next 10 years and where to focus, where to place their bets.
You know, for investors, you know, the idea has always been to follow the trend. But I believe in this instance, being ahead of the trend, being on the bleeding edge is really the smart play. To really look at where things are going to be as opposed to what things are important right now. You know, the idea of the electric vehicle was innovative and hyper exciting a decade ago. That may not be what the next 10 years holds. And so there's an opportunity to really see what the next form of technology is. And so as investors, we have to just look ahead, look to the future, and also look at the faces that we're looking to invest in. That there's going to be and has been a changing America for quite some time, whatever that may look like. And so you need to focus on creating a real strong thesis that allows you to find founders that reflect the nation as a whole and participate and work with those founders, women founders, people of color founders, Black founders, the like, because they have innovations that are going to feed the next generation. For those people who are coming up as entrepreneurs, you have to seek out and search help. You know, no one, hubris is the death of everyone. You have to really go ahead and break down whatever barriers or walls to finding the right assistance at the right time, regardless of your need to be secretive. There has to be a layer of you being complicit in your success by finding other people who you can enroll in your success, I guess is the best way to say it, so that you can literally make your ideas better, challenged, and actually viable, because it's still not a charity. We're all looking to make money, but the goal is for us to work together to be successful at it.
Absolutely. Well, we have to, right? We absolutely have to. And Jules, to you, same question, areas of advice that you would give both investors and founders looking to get into these areas you're focusing on over the next 10 years.
Sure. So most definitely I mean, the field of, well, more specifically cryptocurrency, anything internet-based or related to the internet, it's of course to do excessive amount of research to form your own school of thought, I would say, to really navigate with your own own goals, on convictions in the end. Then as well, exactly as Noble said, I think finding mentors is key. Well, I mean, I'm experiencing it myself right now, typically setting up a new business in a new area. Well, it's both to have a springboard first, and to have to not be exactly on your own. The entire idea behind whether investing or building a company is to do it with other people. So it's exactly, especially if you're trying to, as we're doing right now at Insula, trying to open a new access to a new market. Everything is new, so it's best to gather, to exchange, and to better anticipate the future, especially in an era where everything seems to be converging towards open source, transparency of information. So it's probably the era of protecting everything with patent, etc., maybe changing, and it's maybe more about being fast on making informed decisions rather than being secretive on a small community. It's more about network value, well, anything that is improving the flow of information, on moving fast, having access to the best quality information. I think that's key in general. So not to isolate, to sum up.
And thank you. And Irina, to you, areas of advice, founders and investors.
For investors, I would really advise to open up your thesis and start looking to other interesting innovations. I think what became obvious right now is that a very narrow thesis maybe have worked before, but now there's a lot of different industries that can integrate into it, especially if you're in the technology innovations. I think that we're going to see a faster cycles of liquidity. So I foresee that will become something that people will kind of do, you know, somebody who's going to be really concentrating on specifically seed, right, and A and B. And I really think that we are going to start shrinking the size of the company right before the company goes public. Going public is extremely expensive. It has been very expensive, but it no longer needs to be because we have a better technology. I have a great keynote about that on VCTV. So for viewers and investors too, who are not familiar with the way capital markets work, I explain very well why things will change. So, and for entrepreneurs, just start pitching, and for God's sake, make your pitch short and nice and pretty, okay? Especially now that you are online, don't turn it into this 20-minute conversation, long pitches with the numbers and whatever. American Marketing Association says that you have 90 seconds to get somebody's attention. So if you're gonna spend that 90 seconds, blah, 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 you're a goner, okay? Then it's so expensive for you to come back and capture the attention. So remember, it's all about presence. Make sure you have several decks. And obviously that applies for earlier stage fundraising, because those that have raised funds and especially have been serial entrepreneurs, they understand, and they have their own special sauce that they can do it. But overall, make sure you make several decks. Make a deck that is fast, 90 seconds to 3 minutes, very clear. Make sure investor feels something. You want to feel things. You want me to be feeling things when you're showing me something, not just how you're the most brilliant person in the whole wide world, because everybody thinks that. And then make more detailed deck afterwards that you can follow up with. And then that allows you to really have a strong foundation to come up and have a shelf presence. And then on the back end to have the essence, and just pitch. If you're a fundraising, pitch. You have an idea, make a deck, pitch. If you don't have solutions quite yet, but you want to go, just pitch, reach out to investors and do it, because we're suffering from a lack of deal flow. I mean, it's unbelievable how being disconnected like this in person completely disrupted everything, and people seem to be not waking up to it. Some are adapting, but most are just huddling in the dirt, not knowing, what to do and what to say.
Thank you, Irina. Gary, super quick as we're coming to the top of the hour, so we got to do wrap ups here. But advice you have for anybody out there either investing or building in the next 10 years?
I mean, the situation, it's, AI is the electricity, data is the power plant, and 5G, now 6G, which China just put up their first 6G satellite, is really the turbocharger, or the insane mode in Tesla terms. So, I mean, we've got to use, so in terms of technologies, we've got to look at what technologies are going to make our lives better. So 6G, obviously, think about for Internet of Things and sensors, how does that change things? So focus on how to be able to make a difference. Make sure you got a great team. Make sure if you've got technical founders of the company, that they understand marketing is important. The rule of threes, you need to have a person that's operational that understands marketing, somebody that's technical, and somebody that's operations. And if you do that, you're going to succeed. There are democratized opportunities today. I know a lot of companies that really sped forward during this digital transformation, which isn't going to stop. It may change a little bit because people are house happy and want to get out once the pandemic slows down. But I mean, we've made a quantum leap forward in humanity with this pandemic, and it's not something we're going to forget in short order. So it's a great opportunity for the companies. It's a great opportunity it doesn't matter if you're in Nigeria or Moscow or Stavropol or Kiev. It doesn't really matter. It only matters if you can get the job done and if you've got the right contacts to be able to get the message out. Marketing is important, very important.
Speaking of marketing, where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation as we come to close?
You can get me now Twitter. You can get me on LinkedIn, Gary Fowler. You can write me an email, gary@gstvs.com. I've got a couple of shows. I got one tomorrow on security, and then I've got the top AI companies in the world will be on my show, Gary's Picks, on Wednesday. So tune in. I'd love to see you, hear you, and correspond with you.
Wonderful. Irina, real quick, where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation? And shameless plug for the new event that's coming up as well.
Yes, new event. We are making sure that we lead people into a new reality. So we're gathering in the heart of Texas. It's an outdoor event. It has different aspects to it. Obviously, there's thought leadership. Amazing speakers are going to be there. Gary is going to join us. We make an exception for a couple people that are going to be doing a hybrid model, so they cannot travel. So they will speak and we'll do this hybrid thing that I invented. Whatever, we'll see how it goes. And a lot of leaders are stepping up and meeting together to make sure that we build and integrate. So it's ara.global. And I think it's time that we start remembering how to be together and bring back the productivity. And Twitter or LinkedIn is the best way to find me, at Crypto Superwoman, or just Google Irina Litchfield and you will see me everywhere.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jules, real quick, where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation?
Sure. So most definitely on LinkedIn. So Jules Bexy Morin de la Rivière on LinkedIn, but search for Insula Investment Management, and from the page you can find me. I use it every day, posting some things about basically the company and the events I start to participate in to talk about our philosophy. So feel free to reach out and to follow what we do on LinkedIn. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. Last but not least, Noble, where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation?
Easy to find me, Noble Dracone on LinkedIn. You can find me at Dracone on Twitter, and you can always find me at maccelerator.la to learn more about incubators. And that's it.
Wonderful. All, thank you so much for tuning in today and also for sharing your thoughts and insights to your audience. Thank you very much. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today to join our fellow investor here who have taken their time out of their day on Partner Monday to join us. We'd love to have you share your thoughts and insights around different technologies, industries, and regions around the world. Do reach out. We'll find the right set of investors for you to join as well. Entrepreneurs, we've talked a lot about different advice. Thank you, Noble, of how to be successful in these next 10 years. If you'd like to get up on the virtual stage here at VCTV, thank you, Gary, to share your business or product or service, to give feedback on how that will look in the next 10 years, along with building relationships with us as investors and our light audience, do reach out to the team and or myself. We'll find the right set for you. A big thank you to the LA Token team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me along with all of our investors here today on VCTV and upcoming episodes of VCTV online 24/7, 365. With that, we'll be back in just a short little bit with more VCTV.